Hello everyone. So I'll be leading the next panel session with our great guest speakers. So I'm really happy to introduce Kyriakos Georgiou. So he's a filmmaker and the managing founder and director of the London South Film Festival, which is very exciting. We also have Amelia Bullmore, a British actress, screenwriter and playwright. Very exciting. Welcome to BUZZIN SHORTS. So she's known for her roles in Coronation Street. I'm Alan Partridge, where she played Alan Partridge's girlfriend, Sonia.
He's married someone else now.
Ashes to Ashes 2012 and Scott and Bailey. Her writing credits include episodes of This Life, Attachments, Black Cap and Scott and Bailey. We also have Rich Rose, an award-winning director and writer based in South London. His most recent film, Her Love, is currently on the international festival circuit. So very exciting. Let's welcome them all with a round of applause. Yeah, great. And we can just take seats and start with the first question. I wanted to ask, how did you start with the film industry? Let's start with you.
Kiri for short.
Kiri, yeah. How did you start with your career?
I took the most awkward route into the industry. So, first of all, thank you for inviting us and thanks for coming. I know it's a bit crazy out there. The weather yesterday, almost like lost my hair. But thank you for coming. So I took the most awkward route into the industry. I went through being an extra on set, and everyone said that's not how you're going to get into it. But when everyone else was going off to go off for lunch, I was like a little bit different, and I said I want to stay. And I know it doesn't look like it, but I used to miss lunch just because I wanted to see how they set up the next scene and things like that. I really cared about learning more, and then I started getting invited back as a PA, and slowly working up and making contacts and friends, and yeah, that's my sort of sneaky route in.
Brilliant. And you have experience with film festivals as well,
yeah.
Which is really exciting. How do you think the industry has changed since the first year that you worked in it?
It's interesting. So I set up the South London Film Festival in 2020, which was in the heart of lockdown. I made a short film, like I'm sure most of us. Are we filmmakers in here? A lot of creatives.
Yeah.
So I made a film called When Life Gives You Lemons, Take Them, because there's none left in Tesco's. And it was at the heart where everyone was stealing toilet roll from each other, and I made a joke about that in the film, but it was getting into festivals, and I thought there is such a lack of representation for authenticity, and a lot of the films I was seeing were it was like friends of mates and things like that, and I wanted to build a fair platform, and I started the South London Film Festival and was told by everybody, no, because it's South London, it's too small, it's too niche, but we grew, and what I've seen since is depending on what's happening around the world, it affects the stories that we get. So within the first 3 months, we had, I think it was over 1,000 submissions. And at the time, a lot of it was around Black Lives Matter and stories like that, police brutality. And it's interesting, and COVID as well. And over the years, how COVID is now a thing of the past, and we're getting stories about war, refugees, lots of different. So I think it kind of reflects the emotions of society.
Sure. Great. Yeah, that's very interesting. And Amelia, just to ask you about your career, how did that start, and what's your experience with setbacks and just obstacles generally?
Well, I started just loving being in plays at school and loving writing stories, and then I did a drama degree at Manchester. So then it was all about plays, putting plays on, helping out with plays, doing the lights, doing the makeup, being in them, having a go at writing them. And then I was in a small theatre company, and then I just happened to get work on TV. I don't really work in film much, so that's sort of, I have to say that, so shouldn't be here. But film, I sort of think I know it has its own place, but I do lots of filming work with TV, and I'm quite interested in the distinction the room feels between TV and film. But occasionally I get work in a film, but I think it's sort of quite a separate realm. And I've done a couple of short films, like low-budget short films, with a 30-year gap between them, but one was last week, so that was good. Obstacles, Well, I suppose I have been very, very lucky. I think it was much easier at the time. It was easier in all kinds of ways. You could rub along, you could sign on. So you could sign on while you were doing creative stuff. There were schemes. We got enterprise allowance, which enabled us to start up a company, a small theatre company. Rent was cheaper. It was easier to get work in the service industry, so you could support it just was easier to muddle through. And what I feel when I talk to people my kids' age or people in their 20s, 30s, even older, is it's so hard to start out while you're making the rent. And you often have to choose between making the rent and making the work you want to work. So the landscape was easier, so I didn't have that obstacle. I don't think I've had especially big obstacles, just the generic obstacles of you're not in charge of, when you're acting, you're not in charge of the work you get. It's kind of random what rolls up. So luck plays its part. Obviously, tenacity and loving doing it plays its part, but you need little bursts of luck to keep you going, and then in between you can just plug away. And then sometimes with writing, it can be very, very difficult to get an idea over the line, but there are different, so I write sometimes for radio, sometimes for theatre, sometimes for TV. I have tried to write for film, but it didn't come to it. The thing is, most things don't come to fruition. So it's good to have two jobs. Two dodgy jobs is better than one. And often it's the thing that you don't think will get traction that does get traction. So you might have 3 ideas in development, one you really, really love, one you think's okay, one's a bit of a shrug, and maybe the shrug, but anyway, then you get behind the shrug. So I don't think I've had unusual obstacles. I think I've had bog standard obstacles.
Great, thanks for that. And what keeps you inspired?
How great, when you see work that's great, whatever the medium is, when you see good work, when you work with good people, how fun it is. I still really love being on a set. I love the community of it. I love all the guys in shorts. I love the joking. I love the democracy, the playfulness, and the focus, like whether you're writing, which is a very sort of pleasurably focused state, or when you're into that silence of a take and everybody for the duration of those minutes is just on that thing. I am just a bit hooked on it. So when I don't work, in COVID, we were at home obviously like everybody else, and we had to fix something, and somebody tore some gaffer tape. I thought, oh my God, I want to go to work, because someone is always tearing gaffer tape somewhere when you're at work. And when I heard the gaffer tape, I realised how much I pined to be on a set, playing, doing that little part of all the hundreds of parts that have to be done to make the thing. That's the drug, I think. That's what I'm hooked on.
That's brilliant, really inspiring. And Rich, can you tell us a bit more about your career as well? How did you start in the industry?
Yeah, so I kind of started off in live comedy. So I was in a double act with a friend of mine throughout most of my 20s. We did that for about 8 years or so. And it was a lot of fun for at least 7 of those years. And the final one was pretty bleak. But I'd always wanted to do film, but I just couldn't really see a way into that. And then during that time, I co-wrote a sitcom pilot with another friend of mine. And we pitched that to a producer, and she liked it and ended up securing funding to make it through kind of a mixture of private investors and I think a Kickstarter campaign. Excuse me. So that was shot in, I think, 2016 or 2017. and kind of initially had like a bit of buzz around it. It led to like a meeting with the head of development at Channel 4 and someone from Baby Cow, and it felt as though it was actually moving forward. And then it led to absolutely nothing and fizzled out, and that was quite a humbling sort of lesson in, you know, dampening your expectations a little bit. And then lockdown happened, and I kind of treated it as a bit of a time to sort of reassess whether I wanted to carry on doing comedy, which obviously, you know, was out of the question completely during lockdown, live events, or to try and, you know, pursue film, which is what I'd always really wanted to do. So I ended up directing. I had a couple of friends who were in bands. I ended up directing sort of a handful of very no-budget music videos for them. And then in 2022, I did an MA in directing at Met Film, and graduated in 2023. And the short that I made as my dissertation film did quite well on the festival circuit. And then I made another short, shot another one last year, which we completed early this year, so that's kind of doing festivals now. And I've written a feature which was sort of specifically designed to be made on a low budget, kind of minimal characters and locations, and I've got a producer on board with that now. And I mean, we're just kind of in the very early stages of sort of trying to strategize how to, you know, present it to potential investors and production companies. I mean, don't know if it'll lead to anything, but that's kind of the main focus at the moment. Yeah.
Great. Talking about producing, I think our students here are interested in knowing how to find the right producer. How did you meet your producer, for example, and do you have any advice for the young filmmakers how to go about finding someone? I mean, I was
lucky, and I think, like, you know, a lot of it is just sort of building connections and, you know, being kind of open to meeting people in the right place at the right time. So this guy came, like when I was doing the comedy double act, came to a night that I used to organise, a comedy night that we used to do, and he attended a few times and we got talking that way. And then I found out that he worked in production. So we started sort of exchanging scripts and that sort of thing. I kind of was like an unofficial script reader on another film that he's got kind of in pre-production elsewhere at the moment. And when I wrote this one, I sent it to him and just said, do you think it's viable? Like, it could be made for, you know, a very low budget. Are you interested? And thankfully he liked it. But I mean, in terms of actually meeting a producer outside of that scenario, I have no idea, really.
Yeah.
So
I guess making your work and just connecting with people is a great advice, so thanks for that. Going back to the marketing front, I want to ask about your opinion on how important is it to invest in the marketing side of a film. We have an example like Anora, which was an Oscar film that was with a budget of 8 million, but then the marketing around it was 16 million. So wow. I was just thinking, do you think in today's landscape this is something people have to think about more, or we should focus on content, we should focus on quality and then worry about marketing? What are your thoughts about that?
That's a great question, and I just want to add on to, congrats by the way, I just wanted to add on to about the producers side of it, because I also have a background working in education as well, so I know how hard it is for students to find a place in the industry, which is why I set up the film festival, to make a platform, you know, and just to add on to it, I think it's important to come to events like this, come to festivals where you've got active filmmakers, you know, you've just come out of watching a short film, these are people who are active in the industry, and you want to meet more people and just make friends with people, and that's what it's about. Just talk to people. You might meet someone who shares the same values as you or the same story, you know, like you someone who enjoys comedy, and then you say, oh, do you mind having a look at this script? And it's a good way to sort of connect. But I'll go on to marketing. Marketing is very, very important. It's crucial in this industry, but there's two elements to it, and when we make films we've got to really think about what is the reason why we're making a film. Are we making a film because we want to get festival success, we want to go out there and win awards and, you know, make a name for ourselves as an Oscar winner and this and that, or are we doing it because we've got a message to tell, or are we doing it to entertain? You know, it's all these different reasons. And if you've got a story where, and I can give you an example, so I'm also an exec producer, and we have a short film at the moment which has just, we keep this between us, but it's just become Academy Award qualifying. And the director, she's amazing. Her name's Alex Bahia Wayne. She's an incredible writer, director, and it's just now it's BAFTA qualifying, Oscar qualifying, and we've just going through this process of, are we going to do marketing? Are we going to push it? I think 150 films per year get Oscar qualifying, and if you think about going the whole way, they narrow those 150 that actually get qualified down to about 20 or 25 or whatever it is to the shortlist. So you can imagine how hard the odds are, and then you've got to think about, is it worth pushing the finances, to push a film against all the different odds, and you've got to think about, where you want to go with it. I say to a lot of filmmakers, festival success doesn't always, and I'm someone who runs a festival, doesn't always define your success. And despite this film being Oscar qualifying and having all the sort of awards it's already won, it doesn't mean that we've got into every festival. There's some festivals we haven't got into, and where I see other films that have. So it doesn't always define what your growth is. So if you've got a project, the best marketing is sharing it with people. Talking about it. Like if you've got a story that's important to you, if you've told a story that's important to your life and you want other people to see it or hear about it, share it. Talk about it. And then when we talk about paid marketing, that's a whole another level. But you've always got to counter the odds, and don't put yourself in any financial position where you're gambling with everything you have just to, hopefully get seen. There's always opportunities to push your work out.
That's a really insightful answer. Thank you for that.
So it's a bit long, but
no, that's great. And just talking about distribution, I guess. How do you see the Netflix and all the digital platforms that we have? How do you see them in the next 10 years? Are they still going to be around? What are your predictions? Maybe a question for Amelia. Well,
a lot of people say this, but there are too many to sustain. So, it's, I reckon, like lots of people reckon, that there'll be fewer and they'll be merging, and because they can't expect people to pay for so many subscriptions, it'll just be like there'll be co-pros, collaborations, fewer. Somehow the landscape will change a bit like that. But I don't. I'm not very up on it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And Rich, how do you think AI affects filmmaking? We touched upon this question with the previous panel, so I just wanted to see what your opinion is.
I think like anything, it's a tool, and it's new and flashy and exciting, and I think as a result, we'll be overexposed to it for a few years, and it'll be misused. But ultimately, I would hope that calms down. There was that thing in the news the other day about that AI-generated actress who's now been signed to an agency.
Yeah, right.
And I think there was like an open letter signed by a number of actors, kind of expressing their objections and saying it was, quite chilling and dystopian. My feeling is, don't really rise to that, because that actress won't be in any films. That's purely there to create debate and headlines. Like, if a director were to put this AI-generated actress in a film, they can forget ever working with a reputable actor ever again, because no one would if you're a person who basically demonstrates that you don't think anything about actors as people. I think that kind of thing is just kind of, hyperbole and crap, to be honest, just there to generate headlines. But I think in terms of like writing, I think it is, it does pose a threat in some ways. I think it is a useful tool for writers. I'm not gonna lie. So a script that I'm writing, there was one thing that required knowledge about a thing that I basically had no knowledge about, and I did ask ChatGPT. I basically said, look, this is the story beat that requires, I need to know about a thing that I know nothing about. Does what I've got here make sense? And if not, how can we kind of make it work in a believable way? And I think I personally don't regard that as cheating. I don't think that's any different to doing research for any screenplay. It's basically like asking Wikipedia a really specific question that will help you with an exact beat. but maybe I'm cheating. I don't know. But yeah, but I think there will be a few years where it's probably a bit unsettled and a bit ugly. But in the same way that when CGI kind of took over from stop motion, everyone said, well, that's going to be the death of stop motion. But there's still Laker Studios and Aardman. It just you change and you manoeuvre with the times, and prosthetic effects and that kind of thing haven't died a death because of CGI and blue screen. You look at the Terrifier movies, which you love them or hate them, but they've done really well, and the whole thing is that they are about practical effects and proper kind of gruey old school gore. So I think there'll always be an audience for something that has had no tampering with AI. That was a really waffly answer, sorry, but that's a bunch of thoughts about AI.
Great, thanks. And how would you say, how can you improve the industry? If there's one thing that you can change, you have superpowers, what would that be?
I'd need a lot of superpowers. Certainly the actress wouldn't be on this panel, so don't worry about AI. What could I do? I want the industry to be a more inclusive place for everyone. I want everyone to feel like their voice matters. How do we do that? It's by, supporting each other, supporting each other's voices. Outside of here, I also work for the film and TV charities. Have you heard of that?
No.
Yeah, they're an organisation. They've been around for over 100 years, and they support different elements. They started off initially as a benevolent fund to support cinema and people practicing in cinema with grants and whatnot. But now they do so much support with mental health. You call them up and they've got, there's a support line. They give support with counselling, bullying, harassment training. There's all sorts of support that they can give you, and they also have a stopgap grant for anyone who's sort of out of work. But where I see, and I was a big advocate for them before sort of joining them, but they do a lot of work to do research. And I think research is such a huge part of the growth of the industry and how we can support each other. Maybe, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about mental health in the industry. It's a big problem. And you highlighted something really important about the financial side of the industry. And, people could work multiple jobs, or people trying to sort of pay rent are in positions where they can't fulfill their dreams as a filmmaker, and it's where now the cost of living is really, really difficult. Rent is just at its highest, and it's hard for filmmakers to see scope and creatives to all across every field. And where the film and TV charity, what they're doing a lot of work to build up different. They did a Looking Glass report in 2019, and they've been doing it every 2 years. That's on mental health, and they've just launched actually a thing called the Money Matters Survey. So I think it was, let's get the figures right, I think it's 40% of people in the industry have said that this is what they're from the research in 2023, 40% of people in the industry said that if they were out of work, they'd only be able to cover expenses for 1 month without being difficulties. And that's a huge percentage. And when we compare that with the average of the workforce across different wider networks, that's 23% or 22%. So it's almost double in the film industry. And I know that sounds really stark and scary, but this is why things like the Money Matters survey and the work that these type of research can do, this is where our voice can have a difference, where we can take data that we get to go and then take that to policy advisors and people that we can, maybe advise the industry in how to support mental health, how to support finances, and make things a bit easier. So if I had a superpower, it'd be encouraging the people above to see, whether it's mental health, whether it's people who are financially struggling, to get into a position where they can share their voices freely without feeling that they have to compromise, their work or whatever they're doing, their living standards, just to choose between mental health and career, and financials and career. It shouldn't be like that.
That's really great. Yeah, I think building a collaborative spirit is something that helps the film industry, just so we stay together and help each other, because it can be really difficult, like you mentioned.
It's like you said, you did friends, musicians, you went and did shoots for them, and it's working with each other. It's not always about going out there and finding the Oscar-winning producer who's going to help you.
Yeah.
You start, just be creative in whatever format that is.
Just reach out and keep the conversation going. Yeah, great. And Amelia, what do you think we can improve as a community in film and TV as well?
I'll have a think about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to think about that.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts, Rich?
I don't think I'm enough in the industry
Yeah,
at the moment
yeah.
to kind of say. I honestly, I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I've got one thing. I mean, like I say, I don't, but it's about the very, very beginning when you first get like the jobs like a runner,
Yeah.
or they're so hard to get. It's often about a contact, somebody you happen to know. You often need to be still living at home with your parents to do it, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that. It's the very, very first jobs which seem to have masses of barriers to them, and really keep out people from certain backgrounds, which means that you're not getting as diverse a community as you could be. It's not with everything. It's interesting, you know, if you say to a boom operator, a sound engineer, how do you get into it? It's often family, or someone like running props, or art department. It might be, you know, my uncle did it, or I knew this guy, he had a van, one day he said, could you help out? Someone's sick. So there's some very, very old school family, friends, networking going on. Not like networking, not capital N networking, just like my uncle,
Yeah,
my cousin.
that's true.
That's in some areas of the crafts within a film set, particularly the physical crafts. So that's lighting, gaffers, grips, camera team. Some have very, very specialised training, and some were talking to my mate and this happened. But that runner thing, usually those young people who are running around like crazy for no money, have had a comfortable start. That's the thing I would change, is how to get in, to help people get in.
That's a really great point. Yeah. And also I think it's really difficult to then make the step up. If you're a runner, how do you then climb that ladder?
Oh, it seems to me that it's all about getting in.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
once you're in, there's movement, because you form friendships. It's not strategic networking. I think networking, there's a kind of really, really wholesome, organic networking, which is just having a chat, making connections with people, getting on with people, having a laugh, and then you might picture yourself working with them again. It's not that you've got some master plan about getting recruited. So once you're in, you've got the space and the time to do that. But those mouse holes to get in are very, very small and few.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of filmmakers who are active are quite keen to support, because a lot of them, you're right, the majority of people in the industry have had a leg in, but there's a lot of them who haven't, and those who haven't are keen to support those. And I think, I always say to people, when you go to networking, I always like to, rather than going and thinking, who can I meet, who can I take, whose card can I get, think about what value you can bring. And I know it's easier said than done, because you might be a student who's never had any experience, you've just, you're still studying film, and you think, well, what can I bring? You've got energy, you've got passion, you've got hunger, you've got, reliability. These are the type of things that we need. We need people like that in the industry. Someone that's just going to be there. We see the film industry as this big, magical thing. But it's just a bunch of labourers. They often compare working in the film industry similar to the construction industry, because it is a lot of that, and sometimes it's just being present, just someone who's there to, and as long as you're hungry, not like me, 'cause you get this way, but as long as you're hungry for growth and you go to events, I think just say hi to people, and that's sometimes the hardest step in itself, but there are huge barriers, and sometimes rather than staring at the barriers, we kind of got to try our best to, leap over them ourselves. But yeah, never be afraid to ask, you know.
Yeah, mentoring is really important, even casual mentoring. Like if I'm on a makeup bus before work, I always like to ask, I always like to find out how people got going. So if you say to a young makeup artist, how did you get going? It's usually they went to a makeup school near them, and which was pretty tough to get into, and then because it's all about the first job, and usually what happens is they're very, very good, they work very hard, they're really curious and keen, and their teacher says one day, I could, you know, it's like I could recommend you with a placement job or a trainee job. So it's the people. So learning is incredibly important. Where you study, who teaches you, they can somehow just help you bridge that bit of theory to practice, and that is that's small, but it's a small, but it's got a very deep drop, that gap from theory to practice. So the teachers, if you're lucky enough to have a nurturing teacher who just puts in a word for you, that's key. So that's kind of mentoring, nurturing, networking are all kind of, it's just the human bit of it. It's that you trust a person, you like a person, you can picture them going down okay in another room, and so you just get that little recommendation. Because those recommendations and encouragement, they are really priceless. Yeah. They can make all the difference.
That's really inspiring. Yeah, thanks. I'll open the floor for some questions. If you have anything you wanted to ask, now's the time. Okay.
It's okay.
That's all right. Then we can ask other questions. So, can you tell us about your future projects? Let's talk about the future a little bit.
Should we start with yourself?
Yeah, let's start with you.
I've been doing a lot of talking.
So yeah, I mean, as I said, trying to get this feature off the ground. So the guy who's on board as a producer, we've kind of come up with like a 2-tier strategy for funding. So the idea is it could be made on a micro budget, and you'd be looking at about 100k, I suppose, and that would require sort of certain compromises to be made. Or the kind of ideal indie budget would be about 250 to 300k, and it's just a matter of trying to figure out what way to go about it. But yeah, I think it's quite a fun idea. It's quite a nasty black comedy about sort of parental responsibility and fathers and sons. Yeah, it's pretty horrible actually, but yeah, it's fun. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing that we're focusing on at the moment. And then with another friend, we're kind of in the process of writing another feature, which is a much less sort of personal project for me. It's a bit more a kind of nuts and bolts thriller, but he kind of has various connections in the industry as well, and he kind of felt as though the way the tide was turning certain elements of the British film industry, like writing a that kind of film might be beneficial and a good thing to kind of present to people. And I'm enjoying it. So it's a challenge to write something that you're less kind of emotionally connected with, but that's very kind of A to B to C, quite a functional sort of way of writing. But I mean, yeah, it's sort of a challenge in itself. And yeah, it's a thriller, so it's quite fun to write. So those are kind of the two main things that I'm working on at the moment.
Sounds
yeah.
Cool.
Well, you should go because my answers aren't film. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
You go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've been, as you know, they're saying about the Money Matters survey at the charity. We're really trying to sort of push the results of that. We're getting people to fill it out so we can get a good representative of where people are at in the financial sort of position of the industry. But from a creative point, obviously we've got In the Clouds, which is it's going to be doing its Oscar and BAFTA campaign over the next few months, which is going to be quite intense. So look out for In the Clouds and give us some support. We will also be taking, so we had a film from Letitia Wright, who's from Black Panther, and she had a directorial debut which premiered at the South London Film Festival. and we are now taking that into schools across London. So towards the end of October, we're going to be travelling to different schools and showing the film, talking about it. Letitia herself is actually going to be there and talk to the kids and really make a difference. It's about knife crime, and we're trying to sort of tackle that. Other projects I've got on, there's a film that I'm exec producing, this short film called Skelus, and it's about it's about an offender who has committed a crime a long time ago, but he's now served his time. It's like a horror, it's a little twist on a horror, and it's this is something I'll mention after as well about making shorts for features, but it's a short film which is a concept for a feature film, and it's about this guy who wants to, make amends for the mistake that he's made a long time ago, and he's chasing the ghost of the person that he killed, and it's like a horror but in reverse, and it's a really weird, creepy thing, but we're going to be making that soon. And what else have I got?
Is that with a view to make into a feature?
Into a feature, right? Yeah. So sometimes when you make short films, as well as the marketing and festivals and whatnot, sometimes you make them with a concept for a bigger scope. So either for a TV series or for a bigger sort of feature film or whatever it is you want to. I know someone who's actually written a novel to turn into a feature, which
they wrote the novel in order to
which is usually the other way around, but
was the novel published, is it?
He's got a publisher, so he wanted to make he originally wrote the script for the feature, then he sent that to me and asked me if I'd like to produce it, and then he got an offer from someone to make it into a novel, so he's going to do it the other way around. But yeah,
so first the novel and then the film. Great. Any final questions from anyone? No? Okay. Oh, there's one. Yeah.
My question is about the television industry specifically. So, would you say there's a lot of difference? Obviously, you're not specifically experiencing film as much, but getting into the television industry is also something a lot of people would be very interested in. Would you have any advice on? Is it similar to start as a runner and?
For acting and writing, which so with acting and writing, I can't really speak about the runner bit, except I know how impossibly hard it is. You go with acting, to state the obvious, you go up for all kinds of work, and you don't know which of those jobs you may or may not get. You know that you won't get most of them, so you're not choosing. You're not thinking, I think I'll do some television now. So if you are lucky enough to go up for a television job and then you get a television job, of course what happens is then other television work may come your way. That's just the rule, isn't it? Whatever the realm is. And writing for TV, again, I got into it a bit. I got into it through a friend. A friend who had traction with a TV company as an actor. She'd been in this series, her character had died, they realised that everybody loved her, could have told you that. And then they said, anything you want to be in, even if it's just an idea. So she knew that writing for TV was something I was interested in, writing in general. So I wrote a script for her. Nothing came of it, but it ended up being a calling card, which I just hadn't planned it that way. And I was also pregnant at the time, so I just thought, look, I did that, that's great, I'll have this baby. But fortunately, flukily, I did get work from it, and all the work came from that. So sometimes it's just something you do, not because you think you're going to get anything out of it, that, like doing stand-up in a pub with practically nobody there, happened to get to some work you were talking about, just some comedy work with Chris Morris way back, but nobody would have been doing improv in that pub thinking that anything was going to come out of it. So keep doing what you like to do, what you want to do, what you need to do, almost like concentrate on that, and if tangentially things come from it, that's great, but in the meantime, you've really enjoyed the thing that you're doing. and because you've enjoyed it, it may be that the odds are more likely that something tangentially may come from it. But I'm not really sure I believe in the kind of magic algebra that results in equals further work. I think you just keep doing what you love to do, what you need to do, what you want to do, what you believe in, and just see how, see what comes your way.
Thanks for that great answer. We have more questions.
I just want to ask, would you say it's easier to get into the industry now with all the social media and all of that, or would it be easier like back then because you didn't have like the social media and all of those platforms to get you into it? Which one would you say is like more difficult because each one comes with like different challenges and stuff?
I'm really glad I'm 61 and that I don't have to do that. I mean, I just wouldn't like to do it. I know I didn't grow up with it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, so I'm really glad I don't have to. And one of the things that is very, very different is, particularly after COVID, in-person meetings are fewer, right? So that is a big, big thing that happened with technology is you can Zoom, you can do a self-tape. And I know it's really good for access because, in terms of actors, many more people can go up for a role. Precisely because many more people go up, there are many more tapes to look at. You might only look at the tape for 3 seconds. You don't have a chance to give the actor direction. You don't have a chance to see if there's rapport or if you hit it off. So there's a lot of chemistry stuff that doesn't get to happen. But if someone hits the bullseye of just what you pictured, maybe, but you don't get the chance to interplay. So I think, and when I was young, you would go in a room and it was scary, but you might meet people, and even if you didn't get a job, in just a sort of animal way, you'd been in the same room, you'd shared a tiny bit of time.
More of an energy there.
Yes, and also, if you think of, you can look at a tape, somebody's tape for 30 seconds, you can't really have somebody in a room and get rid of them. It's just plain rude. So you would be outed. If you tried to do it in real life, you couldn't. So I think there are certain human things that have got kind of trashed with some technological advantages, although technological advantages have been very, very good for access. I think they keep some things out, mess some things up, and open some things up.
I'd just say as well, like with the current sort of situation, it can be really helpful to reach out to people. So to the question about TV earlier as well, like it depends where you want to go, and sometimes you don't know that. You don't know what area you want to move into. Sometimes we all want to be writers, directors, or we all want to be in front of the camera, but it's thinking about different elements of how to work that way up. So maybe as an AD, assistant director, and things like that. Someone reached out to me through the festival and said, hey, I'd love to learn more about the industry. I'd love to come to the festival. She came to the festival. We invited her down. We had a chat. She wanted to, learn more about theatre. She was a writer. She wants to get into film, but she wanted to learn a bit more about telling a story. She'd lost her child who was due to cancer, and it was a very sad story. But I encouraged her just to write. And sometimes I can't remember who said it earlier, but going to see films and access content can really inspire your mind. And then you might see, say you're watching a series and you see someone, a name on there that, say you're interested in the technical stuff, and you look at the departments, go and look that person up, go and message them, because I guarantee you they're not going to have the same amount of contact and emails and bombardment as the lead director or someone who's very high up. And those are the people that are going to help you sort of work your way in. That's the beauty of social media, and LinkedIn is a great asset as well. Yeah.
You just touched on something which is, I think, it's good to be ready to have your mind changed, be surprised. You might think that your vocation is X, but if you find along the way that you've got a knack you didn't know you had, or you find a sort of pocket of warm water and it's working, but it isn't the thing that you pictured, just enjoy the warm water and go with that. Don't be too rigid about how you saw yourself, what it was you saw yourself doing. If it's the industry you love, you could say, how much does it matter what you're doing in it? Is it, is it the job or is it the medium?
I'm sorry, I want to say one more thing as well. There's a student called Daniel Panico. So at the South London Film Festival, we have a student film category. This student, he submitted his film, and we're partners with Raindance. So the winner of the student film category gets £1,000 to spend at Raindance Film School. And it was something we set up, really excited to encourage more students to submit. And this student, and it's free to submit, he submitted his film. It was a brilliant short film, and he produced it. He made it at college or uni, but it wasn't any of the sort of film schools or film academies as amazing as this place. And yet he won. And from there, I mentored him, supported him, and he is now the producer of this short film that I'm exec on, which is now Academy Award qualifying. And that same young man, as well as being a producer on Academy Award winning, or not winning yet, Academy Award qualifying short, despite being in that position, he's also worked his way up as an AD. And he was recently, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but he was ADing on House of Dragon. And he was talking to me, and I said, have you told them in the news? Have you told them about the, we've got this big certificate thing, it's really cool. And he was like, no, I'm not going to tell them, because he doesn't want to overstep where he's at. He's an AD there, he's not high up, but he's in a position where in one side of it, he could sit here on this panel and, he'd amaze everyone in here. But on the other side, he'd be on set and no one really knows who he is. And I think that it's exactly what you said, be open-minded, not focusing too much on where we are and where we want to be, because it could change. And I always believe it takes one yes to change everything. So,
agree.
Yeah.
When I I started acting, although I loved writing, but I wasn't writing professionally. And at first, it was tricky. People would say, "Well, what is it? Are you what? Are you this or are you that? What are you doing? Are you doing this now? Have you stopped that?" And you just have to stick with it. If you do more than one thing, just keep doing more than one thing. It'll be tricky for a bit, and then everybody will shut up, and you can just get on with doing more than one thing. Because so many people, for survival reasons and creative reasons, are doing more than one thing. So don't think you have to pick either or. You don't, even if people find it confusing for 10 minutes.
Thank you for all the inspiring words. Any final questions from the audience? Anything else you want to ask? Okay, well, thanks again for joining us today for this panel, and I hope you enjoyed your time here so far. Tomorrow we'll see more films, so you're welcome to see them. So yeah, can we have a round of applause for this? Thank you, guys.